So, as we said earlier, time was we would be sourcing temperature and fuel to make fire, but now we have this burn field. Now, flame is ultimately what's going to be called, as we see here, but we have it called burn here because we're actually going to use it for two things. We're going to use it for flame, and we're going to use it for the kind of explosive expansion part of it that we're going to use later. So we just don't want to make a burn and a divergence field, which is what it's called out here. We just might as well make it as one. At any rate, let's add it in now. So press plus and say source is burn, as we just said, and flame, as we also just said, is where it's going. How do we add it? Well, right now it's set to add, as our temperature is, which means that it's going to keep adding the flame on top of it, meaning there's going to essentially be more and more flame as time goes on. It'll eventually reach some equilibrium, but we still don't really want it. It's less predictable to work with this way. So typically what we do here is we'd say maximum, which basically just means if there wasn't flame there before, there is this much flame now. And if there already is flame there, well, you continue to be flame, subject to the rest of the solve that's going on. But yes, we don't want to add it. We're not adding flame on top of flame. We're just saying there is flame here now or there's not. So do that, and let's also turn off temperature here now, because now that we actually have flame, it will resize to the flame. So let's press play. What do we got? Well, we still see the temperature. I actually don't want to see that anymore. I'm going to say turn that off. Actually, even better, let's just drop out of the sim entirely and import what we've made so far. And we'll shade it out here. We'll make it look more robust, more interesting out here. You can only make it look so good inside the sim, so let's just do it out here. So let's import, or not dop import rather, let's do a import fields. Dop import fields. So dop import fields, we'll point to that dop network. And for dop node, it's going to be a node inside there, so let's go find it. It should be highlighted because we have it there. Smoke object. And what do we want from it? Well, we want the flame. And we should be able to see that now, and there it is. So this is the flame, which is moving based off of the temperature. Because the temperature did the buoyancy, did the velocity field. So now the velocity field is advecting the flame that we added in. So very good. It just looks like a regular old white volume right now. And you can see some of that blue shading or lighting from our light. But so good, so far so good. Let's also add in temperature. And we should also add in density. Even though we haven't created any density yet, we're gonna need it once we are making density, so we might as well do it now. And if you do a pyro post process, which we're gonna do now to actually shade this in our viewport, it requires that you have a density field anyway, even if it has nothing in it. You can see that here under bindings. Density, temperature, and flame. Those are the three building blocks to the look of your sim. Visually, anyway, not the actual shape of it. So there you go, we have something. We've got flame. We can see it has some color, and that's based on the temperature. We can see that here when we look at fire color. It's the physical black body that we talked about. It's using temperature. Again, we're going to talk a lot more about that when we do the actual shading. But for now, we can see that it is working. We're seeing flame. So that's pretty good. We can change the color on here. I'm going to say, well, there's no smoke yet, so there's no point of really changing that yet. I would say turn off this compute min-max thing. It just uses a little bit of processing power that we're never going to need to use those values. But I would point out that even though we did a pretty normal amount of temperature, it's white hot already. Why is it white hot? It wasn't white hot when it was here. Look at that. It's like orange. When it just added that temperature, it was orange, but it became white hot. Why is that? It's the same thing actually as I was just warning you about with the flame. It's because it's adding, because it keeps adding the temperature on top of itself. So we don't want that. Change this to pull. Pull is a cool way to blend, not really based off of, let's say, physical way things work, but it's a pretty intuitive way to do it, where we're not just adding it, it's basically just saying, when you're getting new temperature in, and you're overlapping it with the existing sim, try to accelerate towards the new sim, or the new values. So by putting, let's say, a high value here, it's not multiplying this by 25. It's just saying, really quickly make those values become this. But let's say you had lower values being sourced in, where there is already temperature, it will only cool off slowly. It'll decelerate towards those values slowly. So it's almost like max, in the sense that if you had 0 here, and this was like infinity, it would basically be doing a maximum, where it's accelerating as fast as it possibly can, meaning just do it. And then if it ever has a lower value, well, it'll just stay the higher value, because that's what a max would do, and that's what no deceleration would do. So this is going to be kind of like a light max, where it's quickly moving to that and only slowly moving away from it. So 25 and 1, that's what we're going to do. And let's see what that looks like. And now you can see it's orange, and it kind of just stays orange. It's not getting any hotter than the incoming temperature is. We've got a nice little slow-moving campfire. And keep in mind, it's slow in part because it's actually quite large. This is probably 1 meter or 2 wide, right? In fact, I can just look to know for sure. And in the z-axis, it is, well, it's apparently 8 meters wide, but I guess that's for this whole thing here. So yeah, it's probably a couple meters wide. Pretty big fire. And of course, we can just change some of this stuff anyway. So I'm going to make a flip book, and then we'll continue on.